Today we're going to talk about the housing market as a whole, as a nation. What is happening across the board in all four regions of the United States with regards to home sales. Now, we just got data from the National Association of Realtors, their April existing home sales report that actually shows the number of homes selling declining. And this is the third month in a row that we've actually seen a decline in the number of homes being sold. But at the same time, if you're watching the news, you're reading, you're hearing that appreciation is continuing to happen, that home prices are continuing to rise. Why is that? Why, are we seeing sales decline but home prices increase? Well, depends on who you pay attention to, quite frankly. There are people out there saying that the number of homes selling because it's declining is actually a good thing. This means that buyer demand is slowing, and with that, you're going to see, home prices perhaps come down. I believe it's exactly the opposite. I believe that we're seeing less sales out there across the board just because there are less homes to choose from. When you have a lot of buyers out there, buyer demand is up. Overbidding on properties, multiple offers across the board, that's because there's not a lot of property to choose from. And as property dwindles, as supply goes down, that means less options for buyers and less buyers that can actually buy property. So, I believe that the number of sales is declining because there's just less property out there, less property for buyers to choose from, and therefore they can't get a property, right? And if they can't buy a property, sales are going to decline. And we're going to take a look at this report. As always, I've taken the time to highlight the pieces that I feel like are the most important in the article itself, and I will link to the full article in the description below for you to check it out. For those of you who like to read all of the details and get all of the information, but oftentimes you guys are asking for data. So this is data, right? This is going to show you, give you a little bit of insight as to what's happening across the board in the United States. But before we do that, I want to take a minute and ask a favor. My name is Jeb Smith. I'm a real estate broker here in Southern California. If you find value in this content, in any of the content I put out, do me a favor, hit that like button. It helps more people see it, helps me grow the channel, and ultimately helps me accomplish my goal of helping educate, empower home buyers, home sellers, and make sense of a crazy housing environment at the moment. But for now, let's take a minute and pull up this report and go over the actual numbers here so that we can take a look at them. So as you see here from the beginning, existing home sales are down 2.7%. That's to 2.85 million, the third straight month of decline. What is the 5.8 million? That's the number of homes that have sold from January through the end of April. So 5.8 million, and that's down 2.7%. Again, the third month in a row. Year to date, months January to April, sales are still up 20%. So still up 20% year over year, but we're down month over month. Now, you also have to factor in that April, March of last year were slow months due to the pandemic. So, we can't really look at that year over year data and really take, kind of with a grain of salt, if you will, just because of those 2 months that we kind of lost last year with regards to the pandemic. The median existing home sales price rose to 19.1% year over year to $341,600. Again, because we're going April to April. April last year was a very slow month. And so looking at April of this year compared to that, showing we're up 20% really isn't fair. We've got to get further into the year to see what we're actually seeing with regards to where that median home price is going. So all but one of the four major U.S. regions witnessed month-over-month drop in home sales, but each registered double-digit year-over-year gains for April. So, the number of home sales dropped in all four major regions, but we're seeing double-digit year-over-year gains. So compared to last year, all four regions are selling more property. Sales overall jumped year over year, up 33.9% from a year ago. We were at 4.37 million in April of 2020. Again, we're not going to talk about April because of the pandemic. Home sales were down again in April from the prior month as housing supply continues to fall short of demand. So this is coming from Lawrence Yun, who is the chief economist of the National Association of Realtors, and he's basically confirming what I said a moment ago, or I'm confirming what he said. I guess he has, probably the bigger following, if you will, in this whole thing. But, he's saying that the number of sales is declining just because there's not enough property out there to meet buyer demand, and therefore the number of properties is going down. The falling number of homeowners in mortgage forbearance will also bring out more inventory. So, we are seeing the mortgage forbearance numbers continuing to decline. The theory is that the people that are still in forbearance are the people that need it the most. I don't necessarily know that I believe that. I do believe that, there are people in forbearance that still need it. But I also believe there's a lot of people in forbearance taking advantage of the system and doing what they've been allowed to do. So we're really going to find out when this forbearance ends, how many of these properties actually end up coming to the market, how many people can't continue making those payments. But he believes that, when forbearance ends, we'll get more inventory. I believe that as well. I just don't know how much inventory is going to come from that. The additional supply projected for the market should cool down the torrid pace of price appreciation later in the year. So again, the belief is that as this inventory comes to the market later in the year, you'll see your price appreciation decline a little bit because there's going to be more supply out there. That demand is going to be spread across multiple properties instead of the very few, and you'll have less, of that crazy buyer demand on one particular property, which is really what is driving house prices up, that price appreciation that we've seen. So the median existing home price for all housing types in April was $341,600. That's up 19% from April of 2020. Last year, again, we were at $286,800. But this is a record high and marks 110 straight months of year-over-year gains. Year-over-year gains, record high. It's crazy, right? So does that mean at some point we can't go to 111, 112 months? It's hard to say, right? I do believe that home prices will be higher a year from now and likely higher than that a year from then. But it's hard to say at this point. So total housing inventory at the end of April amounted to 1.16 million units. That's up 10.5% from March's inventory. So we saw a 10% increase from March to April. Those are big numbers. So inventory is coming to the market, but depending on where you're located, you may or may not be seeing it. Here in Southern California, we're not really seeing that inventory come to the market yet. But as more inventory does come to the market, that will help the market. It will help buyers. It will cool things a little bit. You won't see that crazy appreciation, at least in theory. Unsold inventory sits at 2.4 months supply at the current sales pace. That's slightly up from 2.1 months in March. So in March, we had 2.1 months supply. Right now, we have 2.4 months. Last week, when I talked about the California housing market, which I'll link to here, we actually were talking about 1.6 months of supply in the state of California. So California numbers are actually quite a bit less than the nation as a whole, but we'll likely see those increase as well. Properties typically remained on the market for 17 days in April. That's down from 18 days in March. So again, days on the market is continuing to decline. Here in the state of California, it was 7 days on market. So, again, significantly less than that as a whole. So who's buying these properties, right? That's what you guys always ask. Who are the people stepping in and making, these purchases? Is it investors? Is it, who is it? Is it all cash buyers? Well, let's take a minute and look at it. First-time buyers were responsible for 31% of sales in April. That's down a little bit from 32% in March. And individual investors or second home buyers who account for many cash sales purchased 17% of homes in April, and that's up a little bit from March. All cash sales accounted for 25% of transactions in April. That's big. That's big. So when you guys are talking about, getting outbid by cash, can't compete in a certain market because of cash buyers, well, 1 out of 4 buyers is a cash buyer. That is tough. In any market, that's tough. And it's likely going to continue to be tough as long as those cash buyers are around. According to Freddie Mac, the average commitment rate for a 30-year conventional fixed rate loan was 3.06 in April. That was down a little bit from March, and we've actually seen that number get below 3% in the most recent survey, which means that buyer demand is going to continue to stay there. Earlier in, when I was talking in the report, only one of the 4 major regions didn't, see those decline in home sales, and that was the Midwest. They actually experienced higher sales from the prior month. Home sales in the Northeast fell 3.9% from March. The median price in the Northeast was $381,100. That's up 22% from last year. Existing home sales in the Midwest grew 0.8%, and that's a 13.2% increase from a year ago, with the median price in the Midwest being $259,300. Existing home sales in the South decreased 3.7%. Median price in the South was $289,600. That's a 15.8% jump from a year ago. And existing home sales in the West declined 3.1%. From a year ago, the median price in the West was $501,200. That's up nearly 20% from April of last year. So, with that said, what does that mean? That means as long as supply stays low, buyer demand stays where it is, you're likely going to see, a housing market like this. But we did see in that report that supply is increasing, 10% from March. When May's numbers come out, it'd be interesting to see, where supply is going. We've actually seen supply increase a little bit here and there, but every time it increases, it's met with buyer demand. And so the real numbers aren't really growing. And so it'll be interesting to see how this whole thing plays out. Now, we've talked about, the state of California opening up June 15th, fully opening up. Here in Orange County, we just moved to the yellow tier, which again gives, people the ability to do more with businesses, with restaurants, with, sports, all of that good stuff. So as that happens, more people get vaccinated. You'll likely see people more comfortable in selling their property. And as more property comes to the market, you'll have those people that have been sitting on the sidelines waiting for property, also ready to put their homes on the market, and you'll see these increases. The question is, where does it go, right? I mean, is it enough supply to, really slow the housing market, or is it enough just to meet buyer demand, give buyers more options? It'll be hard to say, but I believe it's going to be this, the second one. I think it's going to be, give buyers more options, but I don't think you're going to see a lot change in the housing market for the foreseeable future. But I will continue to update you as more information comes out. We'll get pending home sales data here in a week or so, and we'll update you on that as well. But for now, I appreciate you taking the time to watch. I appreciate all the support. Hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.